Hey everyone, Pugs here with 2 new reviews for y'all. Today, I'm covering 2 iconic episodes. Welcome to the Chum Bucket and Frankendoodle. And these are easily 2 of the most well-known episodes of this season, and I'm excited to talk about them. As always, gotta say thank you to everyone who's been watching, liking, and commenting. You guys are great, and I love seeing these interactions every time. And yeah, I guess that's all I have to say in this little intro, so let's just get right into it. Okay, before I even get started here, am I the only one who feels like Welcome to the Chum Bucket is a special until I rewatch it? I seriously always get that vibe. Maybe it's the song that makes me feel this way, or like the plot itself. It just feels longer than an 11-minute runtime. This has nothing to do with the review, other than sometimes making the episode feel like it drags out for no reason. I think it's because the first half of the episode feels like a lot of build-up that the second half doesn't exactly deliver on. And I suppose that this is the point. SpongeBob is refusing to work for Plankton, which is what the first half of the episode was building up to, but that is something that I notice, and I'll talk about it a little more later. So let's get to the bulk of this review. The first thing that I have to say is that this episode begins with a gorgeous night shot of the Krusty Krab, like those deep blues and purples. Oh, how I love them so. Y'all know I say this for every single gorgeous background, and I'm accused saying it for every single gorgeous background. And moving on to actual content, I like how this episode hints to a certain almost friendly relationship towards Mr. Krabs and Plankton, or at least a relationship built on mutual respect. I like when these two are not necessarily at each other's throats all the time, so this is a plus for me. And this episode gets right into the plot in about a minute, which is always great to see in a short segment show like SpongeBob SquarePants. And in this episode, Plankton is delightfully devious, or maybe I should say delightfully devilish. Sorry, I'm stuck in 2018. Don't listen to me. He breaks apart the tearful goodbye between SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs with glee. He takes out SpongeBob's brain and puts it into a robot. He's really got the whole works of evil going on here. And then, of course, we have the song in this episode, This Grill Is Not a Home. The visuals of this song are both gorgeous and brilliant. I'm thinking of how they made the Krusty Krab and Chum Bucket look so far away from each other, even though they're just, like, across the street. And this song is one of my absolute favorites in the show. Definitely top 5, maybe top 3 material. I have every line of it memorized, if that tells you anything, which, spoiler alert, it doesn't, because I have the lines memorized to at least half the songs in this show. It's not that hard. The song is also a great way of moving the emotional stakes of the plot, and it closes out the episode's excellent first half. The main issue I have with Welcome to the Chum Bucket, though, is that it falls apart in the second half / last act of the episode. Seeing SpongeBob get increasingly selfish is entertaining at points, especially once Plankton gets fed up and SpongeBob loses his brain privileges. But it's also very annoying to me, almost as much as it is to Plankton, even if it is kind of funny to see SpongeBob be a little shit, especially once the robot gets in on it. I go back and forth on whether I find it funny or annoying, as you can see. I think it depends largely on my mood. And the SpongeBob wiki says that this is a quote-unquote trick from SpongeBob, but based on the end of the episode, I really think that this was genuine from him, because that changes things as SpongeBob is, like, pulling something like we've seen in April Fools, and will see in SpongeBob Meets the Strangler. But I'm going with my own reading of the episode here, and I find this behavior annoying and largely not that entertaining, except for Plankton's reaction. Plankton's reaction is the actual funny part of it. SpongeBob's behavior is not. Hopefully I'm making some sense there. Thankfully, it exists in montage form, so I don't really have to get into it too much. I also just kind of feel like the second half of the episode is very empty. I can't describe it. It's just the vibes I get. And I find that I'm not really enjoying myself that much when I'm watching it. Things pick up again once SpongeBob returns to the Krusty Krab, though, and we get a good joke combining callback with SpongeBob's relationship with Mr. Krabs, where just a glare from Mr. Krabs makes SpongeBob switch up real quick. And this is a great note to end the episode on, too. So, not too bad of an ending. Taking everything I've said into consideration, I think Welcome to the Chum Bucket sits on the edge of my good and great tiers. The first half of the episode is great, but the second half can be painfully disappointing at times. So really my mood is what saves this episode from being seen as anything lower than where it is. And that's why this episode is in my great tier, coming in with a score of 8 out of 10. Next up, we've got one of the most well-known episodes in all of SpongeBob SquarePants. I mean, come on. This episode has a whole freaking video game based on it. And it's one of my favorite SpongeBob games at that. So my question is, does Frankendoodle deserve this honor? Does it deserve to be one of the most iconic episodes in the entire show? I think it does. It's not my favorite of the season or anything, spoiler, but I think it deserves this. So let's talk about it. Frankendoodle starts off with a metaphorical bang as we watch a lone artist, played by Mr. Lawrence himself, out at sea. This part is so freaking funny, because Mr. Lawrence knows exactly how to bring the dramatics. And honestly, I'm with the French narrator on this one. This artist guy is dumber than a box of rocks. Who goes to the middle of the ocean with only one pencil? Foolishness, I swear. Beyond this nice beginning, Frankendoodle remains a bit slow until SpongeBob and Patrick decide to use the pencil to prank Squidward. Their excitement over the prank is palpable here, as is their combined humor and horror once it backfires. Doodlebob's incoherent babbling is an entertaining quirk, and the main reason why he's such an iconic character, in my opinion. I mean, me hoi manoi. That's poetry. The first battle with Doodlebob is the best one, in my opinion, because it uses humor a lot more than the second one. I mean, Patrick is simply golden here, and the visuals are amazing as well. I don't know if I prefer "Where's the leak, ma'am?" or "Finland" as Patrick's best quote of this episode. I also think that SpongeBob gets in on the dramatics with his heroic speech, and Patrick is the one that has to bring him down to earth, which, he does at the end of the episode too. And slight tangent, but that moment makes me high-key think of the out-of-character speech Goku has in the Namek Saga that I always try to push out of my head because it's so cringe to me. And don't even argue with me on that one. It's just a fact. I can't even remember if it's just a Funimation dub thing or what, but it messes up his character in way too many people's eyes because then they get the wrong idea about who he is, and then I have to argue with these fools, and oh my god, don't even get me started. The only good part about it is that in the English dub, he still says Son Goku, at least in the Kai version, so I get that at least. But I digress heavily on that one. I don't even know how many of y'all have watched Dragon Ball, so I don't even know how many of y'all even understood anything of what I just said. Back to the actual episode, I once again find myself appreciating the visuals here when SpongeBob goes to bed. I love that he drew Gary a crown, probably because I love Gary, and I love Gary and SpongeBob's friendship, and also because Gary is king. That's just a fact. And when the second battle begins, after a funny gag of Doodlebob drawing himself angry eyebrows, it's pretty entertaining, if a bit less funny than the first. There are some great jokes and puns here, though. The standout for me being the most artistic in high school, preceding accidentally throwing the pencil at Squidward. Also, thinking of that throwaway line, I got my crumbs of SpongeBob being an adult. You know how I love those. And I like how Patrick, of all people, somehow manages to play the straight man in this episode, being the one to bring SpongeBob down to earth when he gets too dramatic and philosophical. I also like how SpongeBob randomly gets philosophical for no reason once he makes Doodlebob a simple doodle again. The smile Doodlebob has at the end is wholesome as well. And the ending of this episode is also great, with the artist excitedly getting his pencil back, only to once more fall to despair after not having a pencil sharpener. Very round circle, and very much the artist is a fool. Frankendoodle is a great episode that definitely has a better first half than second half for me, but the disparity is not as large as that of its sister episode, Welcome to the Chum Bucket. I find myself enjoying this episode throughout, even if it does become slow at moments, and the humor isn't always top tier for me. I also like that the magic of the pencil is never explained. Like, why exactly do the drawings come to life? Who knows? Certainly not me. So, whatever the case may be, Frankendoodle is a perfect contender for my great tier, coming in with a score of 8.7 out of 10. As always, I'll end things off with some closing thoughts of mine. And, the iconicism of Frankendoodle is not to be underestimated. The amount of merch with me hoi manoi on it is ungodly. And Doodlebob as a character is unbelievably well known. Like, people who barely know SpongeBob know Doodlebob. Like, that's iconic. And this episode is considered one of the greats of this show because of how iconic it is, even if personally I don't think it's that level. And, there's video games out the ass making reference to this episode. Like I said, Drawn to Life SpongeBob edition, that was all about Doodlebob. And then, that fan-made horror game, Around the Clock at Bikini Bottom? Guess who's in that game? Yeah, Doodle Bob. And actually, it references the entirety of Drawn to Life SpongeBob Edition. I actually think that's a pretty cool horror game. If you guys haven't played it or haven't seen the Let's Play for it, I would suggest doing that because I think it's a really cool game. And yeah, that's all I really have to say about this episode, or these episodes really. I think they're good, and I think that they're very iconic in their own ways. Like, Welcome to the Chum Bucket has This Grill Is Not a Home, and Frankendoodle has Doodle Bob. And yeah, so with all of that said, I'm gonna go ahead and close out this review, and I will see you guys next time.